Welcome back to Port Charles, where the undercurrents of betrayal and ambition ripple through the halls of General Hospital with devastating intensity. In a twist that could reshape the political and professional landscape of the town, Drew Cain is on the verge of turning the tables on those who sought to destroy him. With evidence mounting and loyalties shifting, the quiet schemes of Portia Robinson and Curtis Ashford are dangerously close to unraveling, courtesy of an unexpected source. Drew Cain has long played the role of the charming, ambitious political hopeful with a past shrouded in darkness and reform. But behind his polished exterior lies a man who remembers every betrayal, every slight, and every threat posed against him. For weeks, Drew has suspected that Curtis Ashford was up to something, but until now, he lacked the hard evidence to expose him. That changed the moment Kai Taylor, the young man Drew once helped walk again, stumbled upon a secret that was never meant for his ears. It began innocuously enough, an evening gathering at the Ashford residence, with Kai invited as a familiar face in the circle of family and friends. But the warmth of hospitality quickly turned cold when Kai, unintentionally eavesdropping outside a partially open study door, heard Curtis and Portia discussing a plan that chilled him to his core. The plan was clear and cruel: track down Jacinda, a woman from Drew's past, and convince her to fabricate a story of consensual ketamine use and a scandalous affair with Drew. The purpose? To destroy his reputation and bring down his political aspirations before they took root. Curtis, driven by desperation and a desire to protect Portia from Drew's grip, had employed Felicia Scorpio to locate Jacinda in Sydney. The idea was to coerce Jacinda into turning the tables on Drew, rewriting the narrative of what really happened the night that destroyed him publicly. But while Curtis hoped to shield Portia and erase Drew's influence, his method, bribery, coercion, and character assassination, placed him on a dangerous precipice. What he hadn't counted on was Kai, with his fierce loyalty to Drew and a conscience that wouldn't allow such a deceit to stand. Despite his deep connection to Trina and the respect he once held for her parents, Kai took the information directly to Drew. The implications were seismic. Portia, a respected physician and community figure, was not only plotting against Drew but had already committed grievous acts that could land her behind bars. Drew, suddenly armed with this bombshell, didn't act immediately. Instead, he began methodically gathering every piece of evidence he could, examining hospital records, speaking to insiders, and tracing Portia's manipulation of medical data. As the pieces fell into place, a dark portrait emerged. Portia hadn't just tampered with the narrative, she had falsified Heather Weber's blood work, ensuring the deranged woman would remain incarcerated by manipulating her cobalt levels. More disturbingly, she had enlisted Brad Cooper to alter Drew's toxicology reports, ensuring that the ketamine found in his system matched a dosage that would support her version of events. What began as a desperate act of self-preservation morphed into a criminal conspiracy involving drug trafficking, falsified medical documentation, and attempted political sabotage. Kai, meanwhile, found himself caught in a storm he never meant to unleash. His intention had been to protect Drew, the man who believed in him when no one else did. But in doing so, he had betrayed Trina's family, possibly irrevocably. Curtis, upon learning of the leak, confronted Kai with a mixture of fury and sorrow. Portia, on the other hand, found herself on the brink of collapse. Her career, her marriage, and her freedom now dangled by a thread Drew held tightly between his fingers. The choices before Drew were stark. He could expose Portia, end her career, and see her prosecuted for medical fraud and drug conspiracy. The evidence was airtight. One move, and she'd be stripped of her license, disgraced before her peers, and sent to prison. And yet, Drew hesitated. Not because of kindness, but because he understood the magnitude of the game he was playing. He wasn't just settling a score, he was making a point. The old Drew would have lashed out blindly. The new Drew would wait, strike at the right moment, and ensure there was no recovery. Still, time was not on Portia's side. The weight of her secrets bore down on her daily. She knew Kai had overheard them. She knew Drew had gone quiet, not out of ignorance, but out of calculation. Her anxiety began to seep into her work at the hospital. Nurses whispered about her distracted demeanor. Brad, too, began distancing himself, terrified that he'd be implicated. Felicia's report from Sydney arrived, but it was too late. Jacinda, no longer the vulnerable pawn she once was, had spoken to Drew, and her loyalty had been bought by truth, not blackmail. She confirmed everything. Meanwhile, Curtis began to see the limits of his own righteousness. He had told himself that protecting Portia justified every underhanded tactic, every lie spun in darkness. But in the end, he had become the very thing he swore to oppose, a man willing to destroy lives for the sake of control. His marriage fractured under the weight of guilt and paranoia. He began questioning not only his plan, but his character. In the midst of this unraveling, Drew stood as both predator and prey. The public still remembered the night he arrived at the Savoy high on ketamine with Jacinda on his arm. They remembered the gunshot, the chaos, the disgrace. What they didn't know was who orchestrated the fall. And now, Drew had a decision to make, whether to rebuild himself quietly or take his revenge in full view of the people who tore him down. If Drew chose war, Portia would be the first casualty. But she wouldn't be the last. Curtis, Brad, Felicia, even Jacinda, they would all be exposed. Trina, caught in the crossfire, would see her family fall apart in real time, her loyalty torn between a mother who lied and a man who refused to forgive. General Hospital has always been a place where secrets thrive in silence, but this time, the silence is deafening. Portia Robinson gambled everything to protect herself from a man she once underestimated. Curtis tried to play the hero but forgot that heroes don't burn bridges to save villages. And Kai, in his innocence, lit a fuse that no one can now put out. In the end, Drew Kane holds all the cards. Whether he plays them with mercy or vengeance remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, Port Charles will never look at Portia the same way again. And for Drew, the war is only just beginning.